everybody, welcome back to Biblical Greek Made Easy. This is Class 7 of Module 1, and today is all about pronouns. And this actually starts a little mini unit for us. Over the course of the next 4 lessons, we're going to do a deep dive into Greek pronouns. These naturally follow nouns is the next thing we need to learn. And guys, let me tell you, they show up so much in the New Testament. They're absolutely on the list for us to learn. So let me give you a scripture verse to encourage you today. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." So you may be reaping a harvest with this Greek already, perhaps not. Maybe you feel like you're still sowing in, you're still putting in the time, but you're not getting much back. We're kind of at that crux point right now where if you keep going a few more weeks, you're going to see where this really pays off. The words you know in the New Testament, the vocabulary, the concepts that you know, they're going to keep increasing and getting better. So let me encourage you to keep going. Don't give up before you reap the harvest of language learning. Okay? And so with that, let me give you the tip of the day. The tip of the day is this. You need to trust the upsilon. Now, what do I mean by that? That sounds weird, doesn't it? This is the first tip of the day that's been cryptic and weird, and I'll own that. I apologize, but this is going to help you as we get later on in this lesson. Okay? Remember, this is Biblical Greek Made Easy, and so we want you to have these tools at your hand, and this is going to be one of those tools that helps you in just a little bit. Give me a few minutes to show you that. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. Why does this matter? Well, pronouns logically follow nouns in the building blocks of language, okay? Nouns are basic. They're the people, places, and things that help us make up sentences, but pronouns are going to be almost just as common. They're going to fill in for nouns at different times, and so we have to know them. They show up all the time. And that's our second point, is there are so many pronouns in the New Testament. You can't believe how many they are. Now, here's the funny thing. If you don't know your pronouns very well, they seem to show up all the time. Like 25% of the word occurrences feel like they're pronouns. They just show up all over the place. If you know them, you almost overlook them and you kind of forget about them, right? That's kind of the way this goes sometimes. So we need to know pronouns to be efficient translators and worthy translators in the New Testament. So let me encourage you with that. And let's start with a little grade school English review. Okay, so what are pronouns? This is taking us back to grade school, isn't it? A pronoun is a word that replaces a noun. A word that replaces a noun. So let me give you some examples. It is red. He is a wonderful guy. You are amazing. Can't we all just get along? All of those in red there, the it, he, you, we, all of those are pronouns. Okay? Notice that we use these pronouns so we don't have to repeat the subject again and again. Whatever the it is we're talking about, we don't have enough in the sentence or the paragraph or the story here to know what it's talking about when we say it is red. But presumably, wherever this is taken from, it was telling us earlier. For example, it may have said, the fire engine is really fast. It is red. It keeps us from having to repeat the fire engine over and over again. Those pronouns help us take those shortcuts in language. I might say, my dad is great. He is a wonderful guy. The he keeps us from having to repeat the noun dad over and over again. It would be weird if I went up to my friend Jordan, for example, and said, "Hey, Jordan, it's good to see Jordan. How's Jordan today?" It's so good to see Jordan. Jordan and Nick should have lunch sometime, right? Instead, we use I and you and words like that to fill in, so we don't have to repeat the name, repeat the title over and over again. That's the beauty of pronouns. So, pronouns can be first person, like I or we. They can be second person, you, or they can be third person, he, she, it, okay? They can also be singular or plural. So this is the difference between I and we and he, she, it, and they, those sorts of examples, okay? So pronouns can do a lot of different things in the language. Now, the word that the pronoun replaces, remember we said that a pronoun replaces a noun, okay? The word that that pronoun replaces is called the antecedent, which basically just means the thing that comes before, right? So if we say, for example, Jesus was walking along the Sea of Galilee when he saw Peter and Andrew fishing, okay? The he there is pointing back to something. What is the antecedent? Well, it's Jesus, right? Jesus is the antecedent there, and that's just the word that the pronoun is replacing, okay? Now, like everything else, the case of the pronoun is determined by its function in the sentence. Okay, so we learned those pronouns early on in lessons 2 and 3. We learned nominative, genitive, dative, and accusative. Remember I told you those aren't going away. They're going to show up again and again. That's the foundation, the platform that the Greek language is built on. Well, that's true here when we talk about pronouns too. Our pronouns are going to have different cases based on their function in the sentence. Okay, so for example, if we had a pronoun that was going to be the subject of a sentence, what case would it be? Right, it would be nominative. Good. If we had a pronoun that was the indirect object, its case would be dative. Exactly. Good. Okay. Now, the number of the pronoun, and when I say number, I'm talking about either singular or plural. The number of the pronoun is going to be determined by its antecedent, that word that comes before. Okay? If we're talking about Jesus, it's going to be a singular pronoun. If we're talking about James and John, it's going to be a plural pronoun, right? Whatever the antecedent is, that's going to determine the number of the pronoun, whether it's singular or whether it's plural. Okay? So, for example, I am awesome. That's talking about me, and it's pointing to a one singular thing. Okay? You can go ahead and say that about yourself. I am awesome, right? It's true. Yay. Good deal. The I is singular because you're talking about yourself, right? Now, if we wanted to say us collectively, we could say we are awesome. The we is plural, right? So the antecedent is what's determining the number, whether it's singular or whether it's plural. Now, there's no gender for first and second person pronouns, okay? Typically, we would talk about gender here, and we would talk about how gender also comes from the antecedent. But just like in English, first and second person pronouns, which we're talking about this week, are not going to have gender. Just like in English, the word I doesn't have gender. It's not masculine, feminine, or neuter. And the word you doesn't have gender. It's not masculine, feminine, or neuter. But notice that when we get to third person pronouns, which is next chapter, those do have gender. He and she and it, those all have gender. Now they, the word they doesn't, okay, it's an inclusive gender word, but in Greek it is going to have gender, and we're going to look at that as time goes by. Now, another note, I've mentioned this before, but Greek does distinguish between you singular and you plural. By the way, just about every language in the world distinguishes between you singular and you plural, except English. English is the only language I've ever encountered, and I've studied a bunch of them. English is the only language I've encountered that uses the same word for you singular and you plural. Every other language distinguishes those, okay? And so we're going to want to make sure that we have those straight in Greek. Now, let me show you the paradigm for first and second person pronouns. Here it is, okay? There you see the first person on the left column. Notice we have nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, singular, and then we have those same in plural. It is a different form for each one. These we're going to have to remember, but there's quite a bit of overlap here. We'll just look down the line. Ego means I. Mu means my. It's the possessive there, the genitive. Dative is moi, and notice that it can take an epsilon on the front and become emoi. Just note that. Just be able to recognize emoi if it shows up as moi. And then accusative singular, me. That one's easy because it looks like me. If you were to transliterate it, it looks like me, which is what it means in English. Me is the accusative singular. Nominative plural is we, hemes. Genitive plural is hemon. Again, notice that genitive plural ending, that own ending. It's wonderfully regular. That means our or ours. And then dative plural, hemen, means to us. And then accusative plural is hemas. Now look at those four plurals. Look how similar they are, right? Hemes, hemon, hemin, and hemas. Okay? They're actually more regular than the English counterparts over there. English uses a lot of different words there, right? All right, so let's look at second person. Notice nominative, genitive, dative, accusative, singular, going down the line there. Sue, and then Sue, again, pronounced the same but spelled differently. And then soy, again, notice the dative singular for both the first person and the second person has that iota. That iota is the sign of the dative, as we've talked about. And then se, you can remember this because it looks a lot like meh for accusative singular. Notice that mu is kind of the sign of the first person. The sigma is the sign of that second person there. And then we get to the second person plural. Look at this. Humes, humon, humin, and humas. Now remember what I told you the tip of the day was, right? That you need to remember the upsilon. Notice that. The hemes and humes, the first person plural forms and the second person plural forms are exactly the same with one key difference. The second person, the you forms, where you're saying you, your, to you, etc., start with an upsilon, which looks like the letter U in English, which is a reminder that it means you, okay? If it doesn't have the upsilon that it starts with, then it's first person. It's we, our, to us, etc. But other than that, the forms are exactly the same. That first letter is different, and I can tell you from many years of experience on this, students oftentimes get those confused. We'll be translating something, and a first-person version will show up, and they'll translate it as second person, or vice versa, okay? So if you can remember that tip of the day, that you need to remember the upsilon, those second person forms begin with upsilon, which can remind us that it means you. It's second person. So I would recommend just making flashcards for each of these. Add these to your vocabulary pile. I'm guessing a little bit of effort going through these a few times will help you. You'll start to see these in context, and probably in, the first few times you go through these, you'll have half of these down easy. There may be a few that just kind of stick a little bit, but spend some time memorizing these. These will show up a fair amount. Guys, that's it. Let's review. So today we talked about our introduction to pronouns. All we're doing is we're giving you the first and second person pronouns and the different cases and the different numbers. We don't have to worry about gender this time because first person and second person don't have gender, just like in English, okay? We learned those paradigms for first and second person pronouns. In some ways, they behave very similarly, exactly what we would expect. And in some ways, they're maybe a little bit weird. Maybe it's another layer that we have to add on, but spend some time looking over these. In some ways, this is kind of like an introduction to pronouns with some extra vocabulary because you're learning these first and second person pronouns, okay? So spend some time studying these. Happy studying, everybody. Guys, you got this. I know you do. We'll see you in the bonus video. We'll see you next time.